Hey, Nikki Brown here, no matter where you are and no matter what part of the world you're in. I hope that you're having a good day. So, I watched Surviving R. Kelly. and I have a few things to say. And I know some people are going to disagree with me, and here's one of the reasons why. Um and we're going to use R. Kelly as an example. R. Kelly never graduated from high school, right? I think he only went as far as the 8th grade. And one of the reasons for that is because he couldn't read well and the kids would tease him, right? In him not being able to read well, it just means that he learns it differently. And whatever teachers he had over the years were not willing to teach him in a way that he could understand. They just lumped him in with the rest of the students and tried to teach him the same way when that's not how he learned, right? So as a result, he learned how to survive in a different way. First law of nature is self-preservation. So he learned to manipulate people to get them to do what he wants them to do in order to have his needs met and to preserve himself. Okay, that's first point. Um, Second point is he was touched by a man as a child. When a young boy is touched by someone, and a female too, when a child, especially a male, and especially one who does not have the basic level of understanding. This is not me trying to be mean. This is not me trying to belittle him down. This is not what this is about. So again, this goes back to people who have a lack of understanding. They don't comprehend what's actually going on. He knows that it was done to him, so then he repeated the behavior because he had no other knowledge to prevent him from doing so, right? A lot of times people either have to have therapy, they have to take some psychology classes, or do some type of reading or learn something from someone in order to not repeat the cycle. Right? And so if you've only graduated from 8th grade, that means your level of comprehension is not there. Again, this is not to be mean. This is not to be funny. This is the truth. This is the reality of what happens. Right? And we can blame the parents. We could blame the school system. Or we can go in whatever direction we want to go in with that. Right? The fact of the matter is, because this person does not have a basic level of comprehension and understanding, when you say something to them, these are the people who get offended. You said something jokingly and they're so serious because they're so guarded and insecure about how people are going to tease them because they're still so in essence, R. Kelly was stuck. Is stuck. Because I would say that if he were to be released today, he would still do the same thing. Right? Because he's stuck at whatever age he experienced that first trauma. So if it was 7, he has the mentality of a 7-year-old. It does not matter that he's a grown adult. It does not matter that you think that he should know better. Right? He is a child in a grown man's body. This happens to a lot of people. Whatever age they were when they experienced the trauma, they get stuck there. Right? Because they don't learn anything different. They don't try to heal. They don't get therapy, life coaching, any type of counseling in school, nothing. So they become a product of their environment and they repeat the same behavior. Let me give you another example. Someone who was not, someone whose English is not their first language, right? They can become fluent in English, but they say that English is the hardest language to learn because there's so many different nuances. There's so many different ways to say different things. There's so much slang. If you are from the North, if you're from the South, if you're from the West, if you're from the Midwest, if you're from the East, you call it soda. If you're from the Midwest, you call it pop. There's so many different little nuances. And a lot of people times will say, oh, well, this person has an accent. It's not really an accent. It's a dialect. It's considered a regional dialect, right? So if you have someone who another language is their first language and they have not become fluent in English, there is a disconnect. The first disconnect is cultural, right? When you go to another country, especially if you stay for an extended period of time and you actually mingle with the people who are from the country. So that means you're not just staying on the resort, right? You're actually going off the resort, or you are staying off the resort and you're amongst the people, the residents who live there, right? If you're there for a significant period of time, it can be a culture shock because they do things differently, right? And so when you say something to them, because English is not their first language, they may not comprehend or understand what you're saying. And I'm using the word comprehend and understand because I know that some people consider the word comprehend as a big word. Again, this is not me trying to be funny. But sometimes people say, Miss Nickie, what does that mean? What is that? I don't know what that is. And so you think that people are on the same page, but sometimes they're not. And sometimes people will say, oh, well, I don't know what that means. And some people won't. They'll get offended. Right? Oh, you trying to be funny, you trying to talk over me, or whatever it is that they think because of their insecurities, right? So then if you have someone who speaks another language as their first language, and then you say something to them in English, again, they may not fully understand what you're saying. You might say, oh yeah, I see you with your hat on. Oh no, I just got this, whatever. And they'll say something like, say they say, oh, my mom bought it, or I don't know. That's not probably a good example. But whatever it is that they say, you say, oh, I like your hat. And they say, oh no, I just need to stay warm. Right? But one doesn't have anything to do with the other. Looking good in the hat, yeah, the purpose of you putting on the hat is so that you can be warm. But putting on a warm hat does not mean that you're going to look good in it. So somebody's saying, oh, you look good in that hat. And the person's response is, now there's a flip side to that because some people don't know how to take compliments. I'm not talking about that person. I'm talking about the person who genuinely does not understand. You just gave them a compliment. They're thinking, oh, well, I just want to be warm. Right? They don't understand that they should be saying just thank you, that you actually gave them a compliment. Right? Their way that their brain processes what you said is different. Because again, they don't fully comprehend and understand what you're saying. So it could cause conflict, especially for people who come from other cultures. The way that they do things is different. For example, if you're in the hospitality industry, if you've ever been to another country, most of the time when a guest, if you're a guest, people will say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, yes, sir, yeah. Right? It will be very polite. No matter what you say, no matter what oh, I'm sorry, I will get you whatever you want, I'll get you whatever you need, right? Here in the United States, and you go a place that should be providing hospitality, whether it be a restaurant, a bar, a hotel, whatever it is, and you meet an American, and it doesn't matter what nationality the American is. You may meet an American, and they be like, and you may say, "Oh, I'm not sure what room I'm supposed to go to." Oh, well, the elevator right there. Again, well, ma'am, you got to go over there and take the elevator. However they say it, it's not, "Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, whatever you need. Oh, I may be more than happy to show you. Oh, my pleasure." It won't be that, right? And again, a lot of times people will say, "Oh, well, this person should know. This person should know better." Right? But it's because the person that's saying it may not know how to communicate. And so that thing is, what you mean you don't know how to get upstairs? The elevator right there. But this person is from another country. You've never been here before. Some people, believe it or not, some people have never been on an elevator, and some people have never been on an escalator. So when they see these things for the first time, they're like, "Wow, the stairs are moving." Again, this is not me trying to be funny. There are people who don't have computers. There are people who don't have cell phones. And they live right here in the United States. I'm not talking about a third world country. Right? So again, thinking back, um, a lot of times people just don't comprehend things well. They take things personally. Like, I know one of the things that is held personally against me, and I've told this story before. I think I just even mentioned it the day, and I don't tell it to harp on it. I usually tell the stories to put things into perspective, right? How people take things personally that really has nothing to do with them, but that's how they comprehend the information, even if it doesn't make logical sense. Interviewed through a temp agency, a very popular temp agency in this country, like one of the number one best ones, right? And I interviewed, the recruiter gave me feedback, which she was not supposed to do. She said, "The lady that you interviewed with, which was the same nationality I am, right? The lady that you interviewed with said that because you have a master's degree, she's afraid that you would take her job and that you won't stay." And so, because of her insecurities and her fears, now let me remind you, she's a manager. How can I take a job that you already have? And so, in my mind, the way that I translate that is, you're basically saying, "I can't eat because you're jealous, because you're insecure, because you're intimidated by the fact that I took my education a step further than you did." So then you have like supervisors or bosses that will abuse their power. Like, "Oh, well, I don't know who she thinks she is. She's not coming in here doing so and so and such and such. I don't care because I don't have that. So I don't care that she has that. I'm still not going to make her a supervisor or a manager." But again, or they'll try to belittle me or talk down to me because they want me to see them in a superior light. But there's no one human being on this earth who is better than another human being. But again, their level of comprehension is competition. Why would you not want someone to learn what you know? That means you get to move up. Or if it's time for you to retire, you get to move out. So why do you care if someone else moves up? Why would you block someone else because of your fears and insecurities? And then when things don't work out so well for you, you wonder how or you wonder why. It's called karma. You don't mistreat people. And a person who has a degree, and if you don't have one, it does not mean 9 times out of 10, they don't think that they're better than anyone. You think that. You're projecting your feelings and your emotions, your insecurities and your fears. You are projecting onto that other person because that's how you really feel. You don't know how they feel because you've not asked them. And then if you do ask them, again, because you already have this preconceived notion in your head, you may not even listen to what they said because you already have your mind made up. Either that or you won't fully comprehend what they're saying because, again, you already have something else in your head. So what they're saying is not going to make sense because you don't want it to make sense, because you want to continue to think what you want to think. And then you'll go around. I had a manager here recently. I offered to help her, and she went around telling people that I said I wanted to take her job. You're a liar and evil. I offered to help you. I did not say I wanted your job because I don't want your job. Right? My master's degree is in higher education, college teaching and learning. And the reason I got that is to give back to the community, right? I wanted to teach adults who don't know how to read, right? Like somebody like a R. Kelly. Well, he does know how to read, but he doesn't read well, right? But I would get him to that proficient level where he needs to be, right? That was my goal, to give back to people. Then once I wasn't able to get a job within the industry, I decided that I was going to start my business so that I can help other people who might be having a hard time getting jobs like I was. Right? But at the time that I graduated, I was not the only one. Right? There were a lot of people. I know this one girl, she graduated from law school and she ended up starting a cleaning business. Right? So what happens is, because you have people with insecurities and fears, they feel like they can't hire you because you will take their job. And so you end up just taking whatever you can get, because you have other people in control who don't know how to control their emotions. They don't comprehend fully what's going on, and they want to sabotage people or provoke people because they don't want you to do better than them. Right? Some don't want you to do well at all, but definitely not better than them. Especially if they didn't go as high in their education as you did, because it's like, oh, well, I can show you. I'm going to be competition. And there's so many people who secretly compete. I'm only competing to be better than I was yesterday. I could care less what anybody else is doing. I remember one time I worked somewhere and I was like the number one person who did this particular job. And this girl would like push herself to compete with me. And I'm like, really? For this job? You gonna, it's not even worth it. And I couldn't believe that but she's not the only one. I've had other people who secretly competed with me over the years. It's so sad. I think it's so unfortunate that people don't know how to just be themselves and not try to compare themselves. Comparison is the thief of all joy. Why would you want to be like somebody else? Be like yourself. So anyway, yeah, I watched Surviving R. Kelly, and I'm not making excuses for him, but I am saying that, again, he's stuck. Like I was sexually, I don't know what you're supposed to say. But I was touched for the very first time at 3, right? And you remember stuff like that because it's traumatizing. Um, but um, my level of comprehension has always been good. I never looked at like, oh, um, so what happens is when you're touched as a child, you get excited or stimulated because that's what the body automatically does. That's a natural body response. But in some people's mind, they think they like it, right? But when I was a child, I knew that I didn't like it. I didn't want it to happen. I didn't like it. So what I would start doing is I started wetting the bed, and I would just pretend to be asleep the whole time. Like, just let the person do whatever they wanted to do and just pretend to be asleep. And I would just do that the whole time. I would just do this the whole time. Like, I didn't know what was going on. I felt it. I knew what was going on. I didn't like it. I didn't want it to happen. And so, again, I would just lay there and pretend that it wasn't going on. Again, some people felt like they liked it because, again, they got excited. The natural response kicked in, and they thought they liked it, especially for a male child, who we do know that men mentally develop slower than girls. So when these things were happening to me, again, I knew I didn't like it, and I didn't want it to continue. And over the years, when things were happening in my family, like my mom and my grandmother fist fighting each other, or my uncle and my cousin stabbing each other, my grandmother getting jumped, having to go to the hospital, right? All the things that happened over the years, I was like, that's not right. Even when I went down south, I visited down south. I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, and we had a talent show. My family reunion, we had a talent show, and all the other kids were like dancing sexually and provocatively, like shaking their behinds. Right, this is in the '80s, and I felt it wasn't right. I was like, these young ladies should not be doing this. But all the adults thought it was cute and thought it was fun, whatever the case may be. So when it was my turn to perform, I thought of something creative, and I pretended to catch a butterfly with a net. And so I was doing like this. And everybody was looking like, what is she doing? They didn't know what I was doing. And then even after I explained it, one of my cousins did like this, like I'm crazy. And I really didn't appreciate that because there's nothing crazy about me. And I just looked at her because I saw her do it. And I just distanced myself from her after that. This is one of the things that I do. I distance myself from people. If you do wrong by me, I'm not going to, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to say anything. I might, depending on the situation, but 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to say anything to you. You know what you did. You know that it was wrong. You know that it can be hurtful to people. I don't have to explain it to you. I just distance myself accordingly because you're not somebody who's for me. But again, a lot of people don't have that thought process. They just repeat the same behavior because they begin to normalize it, and it becomes acceptable, even though it's not. And he even said in the interview, like, I don't see anything wrong with it. And this is one of the reasons he came with the song, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. He really and truly believes that. There was a time where age was not even a factor. Some of our grandparents or great grandparents, they were 12, 13, 14, years old when they started having sex. Pocahontas, right? A lot of people don't know the story of Pocahontas was true. Pocahontas was 12 years old. She owned the land because during those times, the women owned the land. John Smith, when he came here, I think it was John Smith or John, it wasn't John Locke. I think it was John Smith. Anyway, he comes here and he finds out what's going on. He finds out that she owns the land. He marries her, takes her to Europe. She disappears, and he comes back and claims the land because he's her husband. So because she's no longer here, now the land automatically goes to her husband, and he knew that. But again, she was only 12 years old. Pocahontas was a real person, and she was only 12 years old when she got married and taken to Europe and disappeared, only to have her land taken over. Right? So there was a time where age was not a factor. Look at all these priests and pastors of all these different churches. They're notorious for touching children. Because again, a lot of them are stuck at a certain age. They think they don't, it's hard to explain. It's not necessarily that they think they're children, but their mentality is of a child, although society says they're an adult. They're not an adult mentally. There's a lot of people like that. They're stuck at whatever age they experienced that first trauma, whether it be a young child, a teenager, or a young adult. They're stuck. And they don't know that they're stuck. They don't know that this is what they're doing. And so again, R. Kelly, I could see if he were to be released today and had the same amount of money, same amount of power, same amount of access, he would do the same thing again because there was no one stopping him. There was no one saying, no, you can't do that. No, you shouldn't do that. No, that's not right. They just let him do it. And then you had the young girls who, they admired him. They looked up to him. So R. Kelly told me go in the room and ask for something to eat. So that's what I did. Especially if he was giving them money. Which I don't know. Um, Again, I'm not trying to excuse or justify, but I know that there is a large population of people who do not have the same level of comprehension that that they should have. A lot of people are very immature and they are stuck at a certain age and they don't see anything wrong with it because they've normalized it. They get offended easily, they feel attacked easily because, again, they don't comprehend and understand what's really going on. So they take things personal even when it's not. And again, if you have someone in power and they're doing something and getting away with it, it's because they can. Like when they first said that R. Kelly was going to the high school, because he never got an opportunity to graduate. So even if initially he started going out like, damn, I wish that was something that I had done, something I had finished. But his mentality is, oh, let me get me one of these high school girls because he never graduated. So that is his mentality. Of course, he's attracted to young girls because that's where his mind is stuck. And again, this is not me trying to excuse or justify it. And again, I know people going, oh, well, he was a grown man. He shouldn't have been doing that with them girls. He know better. Of course, there's going to be somebody who says that. Because you're not trying to understand the mentality, the psychology behind it. You're just looking at the what happened and not the reason it happened. Again, not to justify or excuse, but it didn't happen just because he wanted to do that. It was done to him and he's repeated the cycle because his mentality is on that same level, like as if he's still in that age group. So he doesn't see anything wrong with it. Again, society can say, oh, you shouldn't eat pork. It gives you worms. It's not good for you. If you pour a can of Coke on top of a pork chop, you'll see the worms coming out, right? But if somebody's like, oh, well, it tastes good, so I'm going to still eat my pork, what you going to do? They've heard that you're not supposed to do that. They heard that it's not good for you. They've seen other people get deathly ill based on their eating habits. But a lot of people don't correlate the two. Oh, well, you got to die from something. Oh, well, my great grandmother ate pork all her life and she lived to be 103. But it didn't have the same pesticides and hormones back then than it does now. And 9 times out of 10, they probably grew their own hogs in the back or raised their own hogs in the backyard and would just go and slaughter it. It didn't come from a store. It was prepared differently. And so, yeah, you do have some people who eat certain things and they're fine, right? Not necessarily fine, but they're good, right? But again, they live in fresh air. They don't get stressed. They live a simple life. They don't want for much more than, to have their basic needs met. And that's what they do. And so you don't have the stress. Stress is one of the number one killers. So they didn't have that stress. They ate better. They ate more fresh fruits and vegetables than they did meat. Right? They didn't kill a pig every day. They would kill the pig and eat off of it, Um, and then they may not, do that again for a while. So again, they had more fresh fruits and vegetables on their plate than they did meat. And so again, somebody could say, "Oh, Kelly, oh, that's not right. You're not supposed to do that." But if you see other people doing it, because apparently a lot of people in the industry were doing it. So if you see other people doing it, you start to normalize it, and you don't see anything wrong with it. And he was hanging with Puffy and Jay-Z deep. And people said, "Oh, Jay-Z didn't do that." Beyonce, Aaliyah, Foxy Brown. I'm just gonna say those three. They were all underage. And you see what he did to Foxy Brown career. Hell, you see what happened to Aaliyah. They say either he or Beyonce is responsible. And the people that Biggie and Craig Mack, the ones that came, because Jay-Z wouldn't have been anybody. Jay-Z was he was a conscious rapper. His cadence was completely different. He wore a kufi. He was a conscious rapper. He was with Original Flavor. Google it. Google Original Flavor. Right? He was part of the rap group Original. Even Big L, who put him on. Come on, a lot of these people make sacrifices to put themselves in a better position. It's no different than the supervisor or manager being intimidated by me because I have a master's degree. People are intimidated by other people they feel are better than them. You may not feel like you're better than anybody, but they feel that you're better than them because they can't do what you can do, or they haven't accomplished what you've accomplished. So I really feel like, because again, if R. Kelly would have come out today, he would do the exact same thing. So for me, I feel like a lot of times these people should get counseling, right? It makes absolutely no sense to make somebody just sit. This is not helping their mentality. That's not helping them get better. It's just helping, like, I don't know how much time he got, but it's just saying like, oh, well, once I get out, I can't wait to get me some of that young tight again. Because where's the counseling? Is he getting counseling? I haven't heard anything about that. A lot of times people that, are put in behind bars, they need help. He never got help from when he was touched as a child, from the man and the woman that touched him. And it's unfortunate because obviously it affected his life. Now, musically, he is a genius. He can listen and replay, by ear. Because again, he learns different from most people. So the fact that he doesn't know how to read, to me, is irrelevant. Because again, I think that, and I know his mom probably worked a lot because I think, if I recall correctly, she was a single parent because the father died. But someone at the school should have said, oh, and I don't think they were doing that back then. I would like to say that he's in my age range. So in the 80s, you just got sent to special ed for the most part. And so no one said, oh, well, this child learns differently. Let's try to teach him differently. Nobody thought of that. And that goes back to that comprehension and understanding. There was a lack of comprehension and understanding for the different mental states that people can be in. Now we're starting to learn about a lot about those, but you know, there was a time when if somebody had Alzheimer's, they would just send them to the crazy, what they called the crazy house, because they didn't understand what it was at that time. And from what I was told, my great great grandmother, on my mom's side, that's one of the things that happened to her. So, yeah, surviving R. Kelly. He was abused and he went on to abuse other people, and that is very unfortunate and sad. Um, but I do know that usually when somebody does that, it's because it was done to them. And so I have a small amount of empathy and sympathy for the situation, not necessarily for the person, but for the situation. And it would be great if somebody could talk to him and get some of those emotions out of him so that he can become a better and healed person. And, you know, maybe start to understand things a little bit better, because I don't think he even understands. He's probably like, why did I get locked up for having sex? And again, what makes sense to you obviously doesn't make sense to him and other people who have done the same thing. And again, I know people are going to disagree, and that's fine. I love y'all. Thank you for watching. Mwah.